In the name of the light, I am that I am. Send forth thy light, O living word. I am that I am, Sanat Kumara. O Father, Mother, light, draw unto thyself in the great in-breath all that has been apart from thee, all that has denied or defamed thy name. Therefore let the dissolution of worlds, of anti-God, be the fulfillment of the eighth ray of the Buddha. O mighty spiral of our oneness, Alpha and Omega, in the divine interchange, therefore, let all unreality be dissolved in the nexus of thy reality, thy cosmic Christ love, in action in me now. Beloved Elohim, in thy name we bow before the Lord of the world, Gautama Buddha. Blessed Maitreya, in the garden of our heart, unfold the fairest flower of the Bodhisattva. O lightning of the mind of God, pluck now all that is extraneous to the vow of the God Self, thy flame of immortality burning in us. We do draw now thy flame of living eternality from the heart, and we ignite the flame of thy heart, the mysteries of thy rays, the mysteries of thy light and thy word. Eternal light of cosmos, I am calling thee. Let thy fire and conflagration in our hearts consume the world's injustice and banality, and their chaos and confusion, all evil doings, darkness. O light of Lanello, that I am, lo, I am, thy light in action, my beloved, in the hearts of thy 10,000 chelas, I am thy light in action. Lo, I am the sacred fire of Mother Flame. Elohim of God, Astrea, I speak thy name. Draw the mighty sacred circle of the solar ring around us now. Seal the oneness of the Buddha and the Mother where I am, in the heart of every disciple of that flame of Alpha and Omega, thy beginning and my ending in the eternal God. O cosmic Christ, seal the divine union of God in every servant's son, here and there and everywhere on earth. I am thy name, O God, Sanat Kumara, Holy Grail, path of perfection, Virgin's veil. O eternal light of the Goddess of wisdom, Goddess of truth, Goddess of love and mercy and justice, and of the mind of all being, descend now, and let thy perfection reign. In the name of the Mother I am that I am, I seal the Guru Sanat Kumara, the Chela All One. I seal the Eightfold Path within these hearts. By the sign of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. Let us open our service with Song 527, Climb the Highest Mountain. Song 527. Thank you. Please be seated. Take out your Ashram rituals. We'll be giving the Great Central Sun ritual that starts on page 25.
Great Central Sun Ritual. O cosmic Christ, thou light of the world. O cosmic Christ, thou light of the world, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. O cosmic Christ, thou light of the world, thou art life, and thy life is the light of my being. Therefore I am the true witness of thy light, for thou art the true light which lighteth every manifestation of the Father, Mother, God, that cometh into the world. Thou art the Word who was made flesh, and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth in the Son, Jesus Christ. I am beholding the glory of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, who is also with me in my beloved holy Christ self. O mighty presence of God, I am in and behind the sun. I welcome thy light which floods all the earth, into my life, into my mind, into my spirit, into my soul. Radiate and blaze forth thy light. Break the bonds of darkness and superstition. Charge me with the great clearness of thy white fire radiance. I am thy child, and each day I shall become more of thy manifestation. I am that I am. I am the light of the world. 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 O thou cosmic Christ, thou the empowerment of my sonship through Jesus Christ, I am born again, not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but I am born of God. For my Lord hath said to me, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? And I have said to him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. Make all light-bearers of this world and cosmos one in the spirit of the great white brotherhood. We are one in thy mystical body of the cosmic Christ. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta, Helios and Vesta. Let the light flow into my being. Let the light expand in the center of my heart. Let the light expand in the center of the earth, and let the earth be transformed into the new day. In the name and in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, I am a son of God. I am come a light unto the world, that whosoever believeth on the cosmic Christ should not abide in darkness, but should have the light of life. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. We are the light of the world. Our ashram that is set on the hill of the Lord Moria El cannot be hid.
Would the communion servers please come forward? And then we'll have our communion blessing.
O thou living bread which came down from heaven unto earth, thou immortal Christ radiant, thou sacred fire substance, in the name of the Spirit of the great white brotherhood, by the power of God from the great central sun, in the name of our beloved Sanat Kumara, and in the name of Lord Gautama at Shambhala, we ask you, in the name and radiance of the ascended Jesus Christ, to charge this substance with thy power and glory. O angels of Saint Germain, angels of the violet flame, descend, we pray, and consecrate this offering now, this substance of faith, unto thy holy purposes. And do thou, O Melchizedek, priest of Salem, administer this substance unto man. And when he had supped, he took the cup and gave unto them, saying, Drink ye all of it. Beloved Lord Maitreya, thou cosmic Christ and planetary Buddha, ascended Master Jesus, Lord Zadkiel of the sacred fire, beloved Saint Germain and Portia, thou mighty I am present from the great central sun, individualized for all, charge thy life into all this wine, the new wine of the ancient covenant, made new by thy Spirit, and let it be the very essence of thy life. In the name of God, we ask you to charge it, and charge it, and charge it by the power of the 3 times 3 with the very essence of thy life, and let all who partake do so by drinking into that one body. In God's holy name I am, so be it.
Let us have our ritual of gratitude, and please remain seated, and let us sing together Song 214, Crowning Rose. Song 214. have our blessing. O beloved, mighty I am presence from the heart of God, in the name of Jesus Christ, in the name of my beloved Holy Christ self, bless this offering from our hearts. Multiply it for the blessing of all light bearers, for the publishing of the word, for the comforting of those that mourn, for the feeding of those who are hungry, and for the descent of the garment of salvation and the robe of righteousness upon every child of God upon earth. To this end, O beloved holy angels, we send you to the four corners of the earth to bring home to us our brothers and sisters of light and to glorify the mighty I Am presence within them. Receive our offering, our Father, Mother God. May it be acceptable in thy sight, O Jesus Christ our Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, in the name of the Mother, amen. Thank you. Please be seated. We have a real treat for you today. We're going to be hearing from Mark and one of his discourses. And I'm happy to tell you that this discourse is published in this book, the first of the Cosmic Discourse. It's chapter 14 in this book, Cosmic Discourses, number 1. So the title of it is Perfect Love. And I was looking at all these Mark discourses, and this is the one that really jumped out that the Master wanted you to hear. So you'll hear. So Perfect Love. And it's in this book if you want to see it in the print version. This is Cosmic Discourses on Cosmic Law, number 1. And then, of course, following that, we will be hearing from Lord Maitreya. And this is a dictation that was given on March 24th, 1985. It's at the end of that session of Summit University. In fact, he addresses the Summit University students. Lord Maitreya had been with us for that quarter of Summit University. It was an interesting quarter. And I was on the staff then, so we got to experience some of the stuff. And but it's a wonderful dictation, and the title of it is Astrology for Twin Flames. Now remember, in one of the previous discourses, Lord Maitreya told us that the mission of Jesus Christ was for the redemption of twin flames. He vowed to redeem the twin flames who were led astray from the Garden of Eden. So here he comes again talking to twin flames about astrology. So please take note. And of course, this is in print. It's chapter 7 in this book, the Maitreya Discourses, so you can study it. I was going to sing a song, sing a song before the dictation, and that's when before I opened up the video and realized that they were singing a song there. It wasn't on the audio that I had at home. And so we will instead be singing song 457, which that's the song that's on the video, I believe. They don't announce the numbers, but it sounded like Om Buddha. So let's first hear Mark, Discourse on Cosmic Law, Perfect Love.
Our lecture this afternoon is Perfect Love. Love itself is supposed to be perfect, so someone might think that it was superfluous to put the word perfect before love. But the Bible states that perfect love casts out fear, which leads me to believe that the writer is definitely trying to make clear to our consciousness the nature of love. That love is many things to many people. We have filial love. We have the love of children for their parents, and we have the love of parents for their children. We have romantic love, the love of a man for a woman or a woman for a man. We have self-love, the love of ourselves for the things that we like to enjoy, the things that we like. And self-love is very active in this world today. Many years ago, I was obsessed with the idea that self-love was all wrong, and that it should be killed, and that the love of God should be substituted for it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to repudiate that statement, but I certainly would modify it. I think that self-love is necessary to a point until we have replaced it with divine love. But I think that there are degrees of self-love, as there are degrees of all kinds of love. I think love is always modified by the degrees of our devotion for the type of love we wish to manifest. If we wish to manifest love for our neighbor, this is, of course, not self-love, it's a social love. We love society, we love people. But much of love seems to be the result of the feeling that we get out of it. In other words, we desire to love because it makes us happy to love. A long time ago, when people were, and they still are, giving large donations to churches, a woman decided after she'd given several $1,000s to the church that she was going to ask it back. That wasn't us. So she asked it back. They wouldn't give it to her. So she got a lawyer and she sued the church. And when the lawsuit was filed, the jury was drawn, case was held, and the decision was handed down. And this is what the court said. They said, in the matter of eleemosynary gifts, we hold that the gifts are given and the benefits are given more to the donor than to the donee. And so the legal mind and the mind of jurisprudence decided that there were more blessings in giving than in receiving, thus confirming the scriptures. So we see there is a type of love that actually enjoys the fact that it can love. And in a way, this is related to the self. Some people, of course, will hold that any time we receive a benefit, that this makes it selfish love. I don't think this is completely true at all. But I think that we always have to watch the degrees and the motives behind whatever we do. If we have expectations of return and we give only because we expect return, it may well be that we are selfishly motivated. Therefore, when we start to ponder the nature of perfect love, we must realize that perfect love is the real love of God. Because, as I see it, God does not seem to derive any great specific benefit out of all that he does for mankind. I think that his is the most unselfish love of all. He takes his energy, his creative mind, and everything that he has and is, and he gives it to human beings to work with. And in return, he is reviled, cursed, denied, mocked, and scoffed at. He is despised and rejected of men. And in the God is dead theory that recently has been popularized by some of our theologians, we find the proof of the fact that the Creator is not really thanked for all that he has done for man. Now, I think sometimes when I really meditate on this, that the reason he is not thanked is because we have not yet really appropriated his intentions. We have misappropriated his intentions. The great givingness of God does not seem to be properly rewarded, and I think that this is because man is yet in his infancy, and that perfect love has not actually done her perfect work because we have hindered the perfect work of God by our ignorance, our unbelief, and our acceptance of mortal fallacy. Human fallibility is at fault then, interfering with the progress God intends for the race. I think another problem involved here is the fact that we are always prone to condemn ourselves or condemn the Creator. When we really condemn ourselves, we are in one sense condemning the Creator too. And yet, where does the fault lie? We cannot actually go to the Godhead and say, well, Father, you made the world such a lousy world that we can't get anything out of it. That wouldn't be true at all, would it? On the other hand, we can't begin to besmirch ourselves as the handiwork of God too much, or we're really desecrating the divine intent there too. So we walk a razor's edge, in a way. And I think that perhaps at times, and I really think this, that blame and condemnation are perhaps the greatest impediment in the world, and the greatest cause of the perfect love of God not manifesting. In other words, I am trying to say to you today that if we would stop condemning ourselves, stop condemning God, stop condemning the universe, stop condemning our job, our teachers, our government, and stop condemning in general, just stop it completely, and recognize that we are living in a glorious opportunity. And then ask ourselves just what this opportunity is, that we could well answer it and say, well, the opportunity is to express perfect love. Well, if we would start doing it instead of just talking about it, I am convinced that we could make our lives, our government, our job, our church, our home, our school, and even nature a place for the expression of perfect love, because it would begin to express first in ourselves. Most reactions that occur in the world that bring about resistance movements and rebellion are the result of fear. People are afraid, and in their fear they lash out at the nearest object of their disaffection. So in psychology, we learn, too, that paranoia and even schizophrenia is really the result of traumatic fear, dominant fear, fear that becomes obsessive to the point that something has to give. And usually what gives is the mind. The mind divides itself in two because that's the way it can deceive itself. When it divides itself in two, one part of the mind says, now, I have to acknowledge this, and the other part says, I won't acknowledge it. This is a dichotomy. A tragic happening occurred in a trip from the East Coast by a lady and her husband. They had some children too. And they were driving along. She was at the wheel and her husband was asleep in the back seat when the car crashed head on and she was killed. The children were alive and uninjured in the car, and he was in the back seat without his shoes. When the ambulance came, the police, he got out of the car and they found him wandering around in circles. And what did he say? He said, if I could only find my shoes, everything would be all right. If I could just find my shoes, he kept repeating, then everything would be all right, over and over and over again. Because the mind that knew that his wife was dead and the tragedy went to sleep.
And the other mind, the false mind, come out and told him that if he could only find his shoes, everything would be all right. And this is a little bit illustrative of the dual mind and how it sets up a split pattern. Several years ago, one of the people that we had at our headquarters that subsequently left, being unfit for cosmic service, on Monday gave me a check for $1,000. And on Friday betrayed me. I asked Saint Germain why. Saint Germain said, "You are dealing with a split personality. This woman, when she was very young, had a romance. And as a result of what happened in that romance, she decided she would hate men and never marry. But down deep inside of her, she still had a yearning to marry and still liked men. So one side of her was attracted to men and the other side was absolutely in a state of despising men. The master told me that this dichotomy had never been healed. And one day, Dr. Jekyll would work in her, the Dr. Jekyll of the good little girl that was very, very good. And then, on another day, the Mr. Hyde would come out from his hiding place, and he would act. And so this unfortunate state of circumstances existed to plague this poor woman. And had I never had the instructions of the master, I would have remained probably to my dying or ascending day in a state of confusion about why in the world she would give me $1,000 one day and turn around and betray me another day. The personal aspects of this are of no concern of anyone's. I only cited it as an example. So, we then come face to face with the idea of self-condemnation in a matter of perfect love. We have mentioned condemnation of others. Some people justify self-condemnation on the grounds that they deserve to condemn themselves. We hold that no one deserves to condemn themselves because self-condemnation is equally undesirable with condemnation of others. It is unprofitable. But we wish to say that the discriminating Christ mind always knows when we err. And it is not wrong for us as divine seekers to recognize when we make a mistake. There's a difference in recognizing we've made a mistake and condemning ourselves. Some people go so far out on this no condemnation bit and this speaking evil of no one, they want to become like the three monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, and think no evil. This does not mean what most people think, and I want to make this very clear. In the matter of perfect love, if love is to attain the majority of its perfection, it has to have the quality of Christ's discrimination. And it must be able to recognize the mistakes of itself as well as the mistakes of others. And there is no problem in this as long as we do not reach into the area of condemnation. However, if I were to be asked or consulted on this whole matter, I would say that I would think that people could have more discrimination towards themselves and less toward others, and they would be better off. In other words, I think minding our own business in the lives of others is very important. I think that unless we're consulted or asked, we should let people paddle their own canoes, with the exception of those who are teachers and are specifically ordained to bring forth truth. These people are supposed to do it. But the average person today is not supposed to interfere in their neighbor's business by condemning him. I cannot object to praise. I have never seen anyone harmed by praise, providing the praise came from a sincere heart and was indexed by genuine appreciation. If people have appreciation and they tell other people about it, these plaudits are often spurs of great joy. They're joyous spurs. When people are told that they've done something nice or that someone appreciates them, and I don't care who it is, you tell your neighbor this, your friend you meet, you say you're glad to see them. These things generate a little oil that smoothens life's pathway. Now some people then come along and say, well, why should we just pass out the oil? If they deserve to be condemned, let's condemn them. I repeat, no one deserves to be condemned, for the simple reason that evil acts themselves are their own condemnation. People are quite wise until they start being foolish and deceiving themselves by tricking themselves with a double mind, where they try to tell themselves that it's not so. As one of our brothers and sisters in this group once told me, say it isn't so. Just saying something isn't so does not alter its structure at all. We cannot and ought not to be ostriches. We ought to be realists and see just what is going on in the world and in ourselves. But it's a real funny thing that people will see evil everywhere and condemn it, and stub their toe over the littlest bit of good that's anywhere and not recognize it. This is also the nature of us all as people. But I want to emphasize this afternoon that I think that a very, very small percentage of the universe is bad. I think the majority of the people are good. Good in their intentions, good in their resolves, good in their concepts of destiny, what they would like to be. The yearnings of the soul, gilded as they are by the divine framework, sort of carry through the whole fabric of life. And I think that nature is good. And the stars, the sunset, sunrise, the sweetness of the scent of flowers, freshly mown hay, the babbling brook, singing birds, and the hopes of heaven. I think the world is, as Robert Louis Stevenson said, the world is full of a number of things. I think we should all be as happy as kings. But the difference between should be and are is two different things. I am convinced that most people in their despairs despair most about little things. Large, ominous ideas and illnesses and things like this, these sometimes come unawares on people, and they take these in stride much better than they do the little things that seem sometimes to threaten so much, but actually are often nothing more than boogeymen. Because there is a great deal of happiness in the world that shows that the perfect love of God is alive, working in society. I've had conversations with Master Moria. He gave us quite a talk this morning. That talk was not intended to smash or blast your hopes, but to show you in a way that heaven is laughing at the ridiculous situations people put them in, because if heaven does not mock them, human beings might take these things seriously. And we are convinced that this age, regardless of what happens to it, is going to pass into history. And we are convinced that if we don't get it now, ultimately this world is going to get her golden age. What we would like to see happen is have it happen now while we're here, you see. That's the whole thing. And I don't think we can blame ourselves for desiring to see that perfect love. After all, in one way, it's the stair steps of all the ages, and now we come to the landing place, you see. From the time of Christ, from the foundation of the world, mankind has tried to move toward a parliament of man from the standpoint of the divine idea. Certainly not from the idea of Nimrod, who builded a tower, the Tower of Babel, not from the idea of one world, from the standpoint of these one-worlders who want to go ahead and just unite people together, like I was talking about tying the cat's tails together and throwing them over the clothesline. It's not a matter of union, it's a matter of unity. We want a one world, all right, and so do the masters. Moria pointed that out in his encyclical. But we don't want one world at any price. The reason we have different nations and different churches, different philosophies, is because they fit the needs of different people. Everyone isn't going to be able to accept our philosophy simply by reason of the fact that they are so much dyed by the dyed-in-the-wool concepts of orthodoxy that they're as good as dead. They won't change. They've made up their mind to it. They'll tell you this. And I think there's nothing worse in the world than to waste our time trying to change these dyed-in-the-wool people. There are an awful lot of people in the world, and many of them have no church, no philosophy, and no sense of direction. We get them every once in a while in fate ads. They write in. They don't even know that a Bible exists. Some of them have never heard of Christ. We are tutoring some of them in the things of Christ. And these are Americans. We have learned of people where the mother and father never mentioned God in the home, and they never knew anything about God. And it may come as a great surprise to you to know that Mrs. Crystal Anderson, who was our first secretary, scarcely knew the Bible and was raised more or less along the line of practically no religion. Crystal was always interested in our quotations of scriptures from the Bible because she herself had no training in the Bible. Many of our people are, of course, Christ-oriented from an early Christian home. And when they find the teachings of the masters and understand how those teachings enable them to fit together like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle the many mysteries of life, they are extremely grateful for it. And they should be. We all should be. For I think basically that perfect love has synthesized the many philosophies and religions into a complex whole that is very orderly and sweet. But I think the most important thing for all of us to have this afternoon is the understanding of how to acquire perfect love. And I fear that the acquisition of perfect love is related to the attention and to energy, both. If, as the Russians have now said, they have discovered that time is energy, and we can accept that, then we have to realize that the substance of our lives is made up of time, and time synonymous energy. So it isn't just what we do in the class here that counts, but it's what we do away from the class that counts. What we do here, of course, counts. But what we do here will become more transcendent and perfected in love if we are functioning when away from here as we are intended to function. And the perfect love of God will enable us to cast aside sophistry and wit and bring into manifestation the real Spirit of the Lord, the real Holy Ghost, the real breath of God in our lives. I think one of the problems that I faced myself in accepting this idea was the fact that I was of the opinion that perhaps the Holy Ghost was so holy that it would annihilate me. I thought that I would become full of holes, that God would shoot me full of holes, there wouldn't be anything left, and I was afraid I would lose my life by becoming too holy. And I'll just bet you, if some of you would admit it, you've had some of the same ideas. So you try to hold on to your life and you wind up losing it because what you're holding on to isn't anything that really is the same, has no constancy whatsoever. First, you find yourself drooling oatmeal all over your chin as a child. The next thing you know, they take the bib off and they say, no more bottle for you. Then you're walking around, then they send you to school. And then you get into the schoolyard, and the next thing you know, you're in high school, and the first thing you know, you're out on your own working at a job. And then you have a whole bunch of concepts, and when you get a little older, you change all those for some more concepts. So who are you anyway that you're trying to hang on to? You've let go of yourself many times already. What are you trying to hang on to? Some kind of a status quo? I think that's what most people do, though. They hang on to the status quo of the old man. He's old from the day he was born, he's tired. And he dies tired. And the eternally new man is the man of the Spirit that recognizes that he has to be renewed in God every day and changed. We simply do have to change. We can't remain the same. And the proof of that is in the fact that George Lancaster back there in the corner, he was a bartender once. He don't mind me telling this on him at all. And I'm just as proud of him as Punch. He's one of our real devotees. But you see, the fact that he was a bartender made him to know a lot of people, and he loved people, and he understood people, and he always knew that the whole thing was phony. You can't even pour a drop of wine down him now. One time I was out for some kind of a lunch with him, and I asked him, I said, shall we have a little tiny sip, a thimbleful of wine? And he said, no, nothing doing. He said, I give it up. So I had to turn around and say, well, I'm going to follow your example, George. Which is a bit interesting, because this perfect love is practical and down to earth. You can use it in your daily life to improve your business, your understanding, and your friendships. I think many of us get too serious at times about our families and ourselves. We get too overly concerned. I'm not against anything that will help us. If worry will help us, fine, let's all worry together. Continuing on with this perfect love, I want to admit that all of us will do things and say things at times that may not always be agreeable to others. I mean, I've been a bull in a china closet in my life many times, but it has never been through intent. I have never tried to sit on anybody or hurt anybody. I've sometimes opened my mouth and put my foot in it. You know what I mean? But the thing is, you either have to be a man of action or a man of inaction. You can be so scared to live that you don't do anything. And I believe that perfect love casts out that fear. And I believe you have to run the risk of trying to serve God, of doing your best. And if you're going to head an organization like this, you're going to have to be unafraid to make statements. If you make a wrong statement, well, you just have to trust that people will understand that, you see. Because the lives of all of us have had many shames in it. If not in this life, then we've had it in the past. And there isn't any one of us that hasn't made a mistake. We haven't been on this planet this long without making some mistakes. But regardless of that, I think the apostles and the prophets and the great men, spiritually speaking, down through the ages, have been full of mistakes. I think they've made a lot of mistakes. But what would we have done without them, mistakes and all? What would we have done without them? I'll say it'd be dark ages. So we have to face the realistic view that we are moving onward to a perfection that we seek from whatever plateau we are presently on. I intend God granting me the life, the long life to do it, and God granting me the wisdom to be able to understand how to do it, and God granting me the friends like you to help me do it, to see that that university develops a series of practical courses in many subjects that we hope will be written in a manner that most people can understand, that will enable people to put some of these practical, philosophical, religious, and even political and social ideas into the test tube of daily living, where you and I can learn to live, you see, a little better than we did the day before. I think that all schools and all classes and all instruction and the whole business here on this planet that we call life is all intended to improve the strain. I think there are retrogressive forces in the world. I think there are forces and things that we can do that will retrogress us as well as progress us. And I can cite several of them. I agree that LSD and all dangerous drugs can retrogress man. I do not believe they will progress man. I believe they are retrogressive agents. I believe that beer, wine, and whiskey, taken to excess certainly, can retrogress man. Used moderately, very moderately, they may have a medicinal place. I know in Europe, the Europeans have a glass of beer and they feed their children wine like water, and the way they handle it, I can't say that I can find as much fault with them as the way we handle it here. I mean, they understand it. However, when you get to really know the truth about it all, you find that the creation of fermentive beverages was brought down here by the Luciferians originally. It was not an activity of God. That's why the proverb says that strong drink mocks, you see. However, I also believe that cigarettes and tobacco should be discarded if possible by the students, but as most of you know, I never condemn any of you who do smoke. I don't condemn anybody for anything. It's their business. But I still am going to take a stand and say that I think we'd all be better off without it. I think it is a retrogressive agent also in a minor way. Physically, I think it is a deteriorating agent, in many cases responsible for lymphatic diseases, emphysema, lung cancer, throat cancer, and also tuberculosis and heart trouble. So I think we'd be better off without it. I think sex is another act which, while it is very vital to the procreative world we live in, we have to keep creating, we have to keep having children or we'd all die out. We have to give life streams a chance to come in. I think excess sex used entirely for pleasure can raise people up to great heights of ecstasy in 1 minute and drop them down the next to such a terrible state of confusion that they don't know whether they're coming or going. And I think that can be a retrogressive agent when it's abused. I think the love of a man and a woman, if they're disposed to be in love, can be a very beautiful experience, and they can be helpmeets to one another and do a lot of good for one another. And I think the celibate that wants to choose the celibate course can make his peace with God in the divine romance. And he can even, in many cases, he or she become attached to a spiritual being. And it will not be a sex activity, it will be a raising up of the sex energy to the head, where it becomes a sacred activity, because the word sex really is sax. And it comes from sacerdotal and sacred. The sacro-iliac, sacro-ilium, huh? And I think all things are wrong only in their abuses. And so the perfect love that drains us of fear must take dominion over all of our acts and make them spiritually creative acts. We have to begin to do as God did. Perfect love will teach us how to create a perfect body. Great saints have had sicknesses. Don't think they haven't. Look at Ramakrishna. He died with cancer of the throat. There have been many crucifixions. St. Teresa had cancer on the knee, I believe. Great afflictions have come to great saints. But on the other hand, what I am citing for you this afternoon is the spiritual power of the creative divine mind in man that is able to create by perfect love the perfect body. And forgetting the karmic patterns that anybody may have, or the projected patterns of human hate that they may have projected against them. Man left alone that will perform a creative act on his body can completely rejuvenate and regenerate his body by the Christ mind. But one of the most beneficial things to do is to regenerate the mind before you try to regenerate the body. Otherwise, you're almost doing like Jesus said, before you start putting wine into a bottle, you first get a new bottle. And the chalice of the consciousness, or the chalice of the mind, should be renewed so that the content will come in, the renewing content, and then the content can be imbibed by the soul, and one can start about the business of building a perfect body by the perfect mind. But you know who the bugaboo is? You know who the serpent in the trees is? The winding, sinuous emotions, the puny little ego that with the puny intellect that always opposes the Christ mind combines together, the puny intellect and the puny ego, and gets his feelings hurt because someone doesn't notice him. Right when somebody's trying to lead a spiritual life, right when somebody is trying to do their best to renew their mind, right when they're doing the best they can to renew their body, along comes the human ego and gets its feelings hurt. And then the ego, with its hurt feelings, starts to generate the emotional whirl in the solar plexus. And that's like a spinning top. And it just pulls the mind and the whole being, the body and all, into a drain. Only it's a reverse spiral. You're going right down the drain. You understand what I mean? Why, it just seems as though the world's literally going to fall apart if you get your feelings hurt. And what is the cure? I think the cure is Christ understanding, providing you can vigilantly see that Christ understanding is given voice at the time you need Christ understanding, to stand up here and say when the boat starts to rock and the storm of the emotions comes up, peace, be still, and know that I am God. If we would only do that, we wouldn't be disturbed by other people. When the boat starts to rock, right away seize it. Don't wait. Don't wait until you're all stirred up and then try to control it, because then you've got a demon on your hands and it'll be stronger than you are.
Okay, next we're going to have our dictation. And when I opened this, they were singing a song, which I believe is song 457, Om Buddha. So let us have that. And we have it on video, fortunately.
Children of the sun, Surya, children of the sun who have captured the light of the air, now to be called sons and daughters of the Most High, inheritors of the light, the putting on of Christhood, Buddhahood, is the return, lo, the ascent unto all that I am. I come that you might hear my voice and know that all of my offering in the path of the Buddha is in the love reverence of the mother, and the mother's burden to reclaim her own, to find them again, to wash them clean, to make them whole, to heal their bodies, to prepare food for soul and body and mind. The great longing of the mother to draw once again to the heart of God all who went forth has thus become self-acclaimed the burden of all Buddhas, and therefore we are the comforters of the mother. We are the comforters of the mother, and we speak through her lips the ancient teaching. Mother then becomes the word. Mother then becomes the embodiment of Buddha and of Christ. For it is the feminine light going forth as universal Shakti that draws once again the disparaged and decimated parts of the soul. O blessed ones, know the longing of the world mother to put back together again the Humpty Dumptys of her children that had fallen from the wall, the great wall of China, which brings the memory of the wall of Shambhala, which became necessary with the densification of the world. And the wall becomes then the etheric octave that descends to cause the great Shambhala to be invisible, no longer to be found in the outer. Thus, the Lords drop the veil over the cherished places, and the etheric retreat is born suddenly when before it was physical. God then hides himself in the heart of the mother, and so many sons and daughters ascended have gone forth in her name to rescue her offspring. She will never rest until they are found, and one by one, compelled by her eye and sternness, by her love and wisdom, by her determination to look once again at the law, to look again at the first love, to remember the golden days in the central sun, to remember then the point of origin. Know then that many have come to be the saviors of the mother's children, and the teaching has been taught, and the publication of my own has been seen by you in this past year to also come through many a heart, as Saint Germain and Del Moria and others, including Mary, have expounded upon the light of Maitreya, the great initiator. So I am called, but realize it is a mantle also. For who is the great initiator but God? Thus I am known as the great initiator, as the instrument, and for the mantle and the honor bestowed. Remember, I am the vessel, as you are the vessel,
And you may also choose what is poured into that vessel, what rare wine of the Spirit distilled, that its essence might nourish and enliven those cast aside and left for dead on the road of life. And how do you become the one who determines what is poured into the vessel? It is an alchemy, a chemistry itself, to line the vessel with the particular virtues that will magnetize the polarity of those virtues, creating the wholeness of that virtue I am, that I am as above, so below, perfecting the matter virtue as custodians of the trust, of the abundant life, of the land, of the community, of the Sangha, of the Buddha. Thus you line the chalice of being with the quality rare, and it must attract the fullness of the Sangha, of the Buddha, of the teacher, of the Dhamma. Blessed hearts, go then from the periphery of manifestation to the heart of the gem, and find the diamond heart that all who have won show forth, and it is truly their badge of the path of the Bodhisattva. Sometimes you do not know when an ascended master has reached the fullness of Buddhahood, but do remember that all of the great white brotherhood, whether ascended or unascended, are on this path, and individual and personal Christhood as defined by the Lord Christ both contains the elements of Buddhahood, but is also a link in the chain of that full becoming. On the one hand, Christhood being the first step and the first fruits, and on the other, its culmination in the crown chakra being the open door to manifold manifestations of the causal body, ring upon ring of the marks of the Buddha. Therefore strive in the degrees of the law outlined by the great Bodhisattva El Morya. Strive then and recognize the path of Chila and Christed One, moving toward the entering in to the many levels of development of the causal body, reaching the center of the I am that I am in that posture of the Buddha who is Guru. Blessed ones, in the teachings you have received at Summit University, you see the stepping stones up the mountain, up Shasta, and up the Grand Teton, the Himalayas, and high in the Andes. Understand that the thread of my teaching is in all teachings of the ascended masters, and they have been as the bodhisattvas going before the coming of my presence. The presence in the earth of that light demands an extraordinary and unflinching strength and devotion on the part of the chelas who would surround me. Thus I come to teach those who have known me in the colored glass and the crystal of the classes of Summit University, those who have known me in the disciplines and the challenges of life as a member of the messenger's staff, those who have known me as keepers of the flame and students worldwide. I come that you might have the realism of a perspective of what it means, and why so long is the coming of Maitreya. Why is the coming so long? It is that we must be certain of rings of light as bodies of chelas, ascended and unascended, who can hold the balance for the light descending and the darkness that does assail it. You see, beloved ones, the point of difficulty is summoning the forces, the concentration, mastering the time and space to challenge the anti-Maitreya, to challenge all those things arrayed which have been exposed by the Mother, who has been the instrument of the Buddha, and exposed by the Buddha, as the instrument of the Mother. We see, therefore, that the concerted, dynamic decree and the call to judgment does summarily dismiss the illusory, unreal ones who have made themselves the ultimately real ones of the earth. Thus, I would say the most necessary attainment is the perception of how powerful the call and how nothingness the adversary. When this is ingrained and the momentum is gained, and your voice is heard into the night, you can understand, beloved ones, that the aura and the presence of Gautama, of Sanat Kumara, is well served through my mantle. And I am graciously, in the bliss of the Almighty, and in the heart of the Chela this day, in gratitude to be the representative of both the Lord of the world and his Chelas. In each case, I consider myself most supremely blessed and fortunate and highly favored by the Lord God. To represent Gautama is to be entrusted with the most tender heart and a universe of a mind of God so vast as to be aware simultaneously of all sentient life, and to be tutoring, initiating, uplifting, nourishing, or chastening that part of life all at once, almost too grand a contemplation for these octaves. Yet this is a person and not a computer. This is the mind of God incarnate. Thus contemplate the infinite God by his representation in Gautama, and understand that it is the quality of compassion that flows in this divine circuitry passing through all life. For each Buddha lends to his sustenance of life that peculiar and special quality, thus contemplating Surya of the sun. Blessed Surya, one comprehends how each thread of light is chastened, enveloped by the fiery electric blue of the devotion of the will of God and God government, and one sees permeating the very pores of his subjects that blue of the world mother. And in the path of Gautama one sees the gold and the pink, separate and yet sometimes blending. And one sees a tenderness which gives all life on this planet a certain sense of well-being and enjoyment, a feeling of being loved even when they prate about their being not loved by their parents. There is a certain sense of at-homeness in the world, which comes from the heart of Gautama and can be amplified through your heart by the path of the ministering servant. I bring to you the sense then of yourself as an extension of myself, who am an extension of Gautama, Sanat Kumara. And that, beloved ones, your heart may become as a fiery furnace, sacred and intense, in which you store light, far more light than those not on the path, and are truly a transformer of worlds. And by that heart, when you stand in the presence of the children of the Mother, they can no longer be the same. They must be different. They must know joy. Such is my presence in the messenger. If you elect then to have that increase of light of the heart, pursue the teachings in an orderly manner, for a certain mastery is required, that you not misuse that light. For misused compassion may become possessiveness or tyranny. You see, when I pour that wine of compassion into the heart, reflective of the ruby ray, if the heart is tinged with untransmuted substance, It will change even the formula of my own distilled heart's essence. Thus I have spoken of lining the chalice with the virtue below of that which is desired from above. In this way there is no I want consciousness, but I am perpetually affirming the mother's virtue that will surely attract the Buddha, for the Buddha adores the mother. Now you see how you yourself determine the quality. Thus I say, every word of the ascended masters to the messengers is in you a preparation not only for the coming of Maitreya in outer manifestation in the world, but in inner manifestation in your being. Understanding this, beloved hearts, I ask you, receive me then in the name of the least of these my brethren. Receive me then in the name of the little child or the littlest angel, or the crystal carol, or the summer song of love. However you receive me, let it be, ever mindful of the calling forth of the effervescent light that clears the way for my fire to pass through the very veins and nadis and nerve centers and chakras. All of thy being is light. All of thy being is light, blessed hearts, sweetest hearts of Krishna, sweetest hearts of the sacred fire. My beloved, as we push back the barriers, the encroachments, those who have gone too far, and thus we say, thus far and no farther, as you accomplish the pushing back of the encroachments upon this city and nation and earth, you will see how much more of the causal body of Maitreya can enter this octave and change all. For, beloved, it is a secret, yet no secret, for I tell it, that the significance of the coming of Maitreya is that my causal body holds the key to the golden age, long awaited. Thus there must be made room in the inn of life in matter, my causal body. Out from the belly of the Buddha, Mother Cosmos is born. Now Buddha would enter Mother Cosmos to reclaim her children. How can I fit when space is occupied by so many, many things? I cannot collect all of these things in my bag, but must leave them aside. The cobwebs and floating satellites of the mind which men have set in motion and propelled one to the other. What a clutter has space become! You see it physical, but I see it astrally, and I see that I will not place that causal body in unhallowed space. Thus we go to the mountains where the causal body may rest on the tips of the trees and the peaks and the streams. But the descent, foot by foot, denotes densification and therefore less penetration of the etheric octave. Why does the mother go to the mountain to receive me? Why have the messengers proclaimed, climb the highest mountain? Because the causal body of Maitreya presses down upon the earth, and thus those below, they become troubled, anguished, in turmoil and fury. They react in a reactionary manner by their superstition, fanaticism, innate hatred of the light. I raise my hand and I send the ruby ray, and the violet flame, and the intensity of the golden pink glow ray, and the mighty cosmos' secret rays. I send the light of the causal body of Saint Germain, of highest dimension, passing through my hands and form, superimposed upon these this day, beloved. I send a light for the dissolution of this chemicalization that has surrounded the messenger and the community all too long. I send a light now for the clearing, for the irrigation by light of the ranch and the farm and the body and the mind and the soil beneath. I send a light and a flow of the river of life of my own being, and I mark a new era and a cycle of victory, for the hour is come and the cosmos rejoices and sends back its joy in the face of injustice, joy in the presence of all who mourn for their out-of-the-way consciousness. Joy then descends as a mantle and as a pre-birthday gift, that the messenger might know that the joy of the Buddha is ever the flow of the heart and the belly and the soul and the mind. And thus ribbons of light and streams of sacred fire flow from my body through hers, touching you now as winds and light and movement and angel hair passing gently. Our beloved, so know that cycles do indeed turn, and they turn because you take the strong hand and thrust the prayer wheel and give the decree and establish that momentum in the face of those who surely come, the dark ones and so forth, by many names. They come, but they also go. They represent the antithesis of the yin and the yang, as they pass through sine waves and then are spent. Thus, beloved, the they of whom I speak are a breed who occupy or use or borrow many bodies for a moment and then are gone. Beware then the rape of the etheric body and the chakras by those who come perhaps not as evil ones but as definite tools of darkness. Beware how they come to poison and turn aside. Beware, O children of the sun. For I am that law that does deliver thee, and the means of deliverance which you have seen as the clipper ship is truly my causal body. It is my Eden of light forged, one created to contain all of you in the mystery school. So it is beautiful to contemplate this area of the nation, yet we must be in the mountain for the lowering of the causal body that is the key to the golden age. We must blend the golden spheres of our causal bodies. Jyotil has come, and Kuthumi, take full advantage of such opportunity. Increase then the yellow sphere and know it is the abiding place of the Buddha. And when you desire to go to the heart of your causal body in the attainment of Christhood, to be with the Buddhas, you must provide them room and have expansive room established as the mind of God, focused in that golden yellow sphere. Thus, the many mansions and the halls of the mansions of the causal body are for the entertaining of the bodhisattvas. Thus, in the mother's house are also many mansions for thy habitation, and secret chambers, and places to play hide and seek, to find me and lose me again. For the mother's play is always that you might receive the initiation of Maitreya. I commend you then to the earnest study of the stages and periods of the path of your becoming the Bodhisattva. Truly the opportunity are the gates opened wide the doors that are opened of cosmic spheres. These open doors are the chakras and the causal bodies of all beings of cosmos who have graduated out of the grips of mortality to become the immortals. And they have sent me in their name to speak to you in this moment concerning the false astrology of the world. I speak of it as a false astrology not because it is a miscalculation of stars or signs or mathematics of the charts of thy birth, but because the interpretation thereof is false, and the level of perception is also false, and so I shall explain. The imprisonment of the soul in the configurations of the astrology must be considered a major challenge of those chelas moving from levels 1 to 2 and 3. There comes a time when the extraordinary necessity of daily challenging one's own astrological chart must be seen, thus defining the positions of the planets and any numbers of stars within that chart. This, then, is the word of Maitreya, which will give you the glimpse of what we teach in the mystery school. You must make the alternate chart, which is the true chart, whereby you designate, according to your best understanding, the replacement for each and every planet or star with the causal body of the ascended masters of your devotion. Now there are indeed cosmic beings and masters close to you whose causal bodies are specifically used, for instance, to counteract the negative aspects of Pluto or certain negative aspects created by combinations of planets. But we shall not reveal these at this time, preferring rather that you assign out of the meditation of your heart and call for the causal body of any being to replace that position, degree by degree, of any planet in your birth chart or your progressed chart, the natal chart. Any of these three or other combinations that may be read by an astrologer will show different configurations of transiting planets. Thus come to understand, beloved, that though there be benign as well as negative influences, the relativity of astrology must be replaced by the absolute presence of the true stars, who are the causal bodies and truly the masters in the causal bodies whom you call forth. Therefore, recognize no other influence in your life except the causal bodies of the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood, forming the true rather than the false astrology of thy life. Remember, beloved ones, that until thy karma is ultimately and fully balanced, that false astrology and the emanations of the lower spheres of the planets will have its effect upon you unless you insulate yourself and give the violet flame and challenge those forces and those negatives, and therefore also replace them with the call to the masters to place their presence and causal body there, and to seal off and bar from your life those projected negative influences that are actually the harbingers of your returning karma. Karma comes to your doorstep daily by the world's astrology, the false astrology. False in the sense, therefore, that you need not reap this karma, but transmute it before it arrives at thy doorstep to disturb thy life and cause all manner of problem. If you only invoke the violet flame and give your decrees without composing for yourself the dynamic decree to challenge these momentums, You may find yourself free of the karma, but burdened by the momentum of the astrology itself, even as human habit patterns endure beyond the karma which was causative in their being made in the first place. Thus, two actions must be taken: the level of personal karma as it affects life, and the matrix in the astrology of the natal chart. And those progressed charts which can be calculated. Realize that the challenging of those momentums is the key to the overcoming of trial and temptation. However, these charts that are calculated according to the worldly astrology must only be done by those astrologers who have the mind of Christ and who are not caught up in the world's sense of the influence and ultimate power of astrology over the life stream. Therefore, we caution and look to a clearinghouse of those who can produce such charts for our chelas, who enter the mind of Christ and commune, and may deliver the understanding without delivering the fear or the anxiety that a greater knowledge of one's destiny brings. We have never recommended astrology as a pursuit of our chelas because it so often makes them fatalistic and invariably causes superstition or the fulfillment of the chart merely because it is present in the mind without hardly an emotion attached thereto. Thus we give a teaching that is reserved for those advanced enough to maintain the control of consciousness and to look upon the astrological chart as a mathematical formula that can be broken by the mind of Maitreya with you, by the mind of the cosmic Christ. This is my service to life. This is my coming to earth for the neutralization of those momentums that plague the planet from various force fields in the matter universe, where negative momentums have been set up by the fallen ones, or where the remains of ancient cataclysm and betrayal and darkness has stained and spotted those planetary bodies or celestial bodies, whose auras therefore become the means of the negatives of astrology calculated in the chart and at your doorstep each day. I merely say to you that the study of this is an extension of the understanding already given by Mother Mary's cosmic clock. It is an understanding you can pursue and thereby gain great mastery. But if you are not determined to give the daily call and the decree concerning this, then it would be wise not to even begin to study your astrology. For to know it and not master it is far worse than not to know it at all. Thus I caution and thus I reveal what formulas and mysteries and alchemy may be gleaned in a further and more organized study of this entire subject. In the meantime, whatever information you have, you must daily make the general call that the causal bodies of the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood seal then the astrological chart in every level and in every aspect, releasing only the light of the great central sun and first cause, and thus make the call for the transmutation of the karma that would magnetize and make you vulnerable to these planetary and interplanetary forces. The gravitational pull of karma is the same as the gravitational pull of the worlds. Those who are karma-free are neutralized from that pull when and only when they eliminate from their four lower bodies and mind the momentums that created the karma and the personal human habit patterns. See then how cause-effect sequences can go into the flame, and how this can be done by the mighty figure-8 flow. And do consult the messenger for a plan of action that may be implemented for your grace and self-mastery. No longer desiring to see you subject to the burdens unseen and unknown, I have thus spoken on behalf of many beings of light who offer their causal bodies this day.
I seal the students of Summit University and the staff and keepers of the flame who have been quickened by my presence and by their own keeping of the vigil of the Great White Brotherhood, in a sphere of gold surrounding now the 4 lower bodies. It is a matrix as much as it is a sphere. The matrix of gold is to be filled in by your drawing forth from the above to the below in the mighty figure-8 flow between us of that which is my causal body. I suggest that you draw it forth little by little, and then see and contemplate what is the opposition that is raised to that light. Thus temper and take a bit at a time, and be willing to hold fast with that bit of light until you have met every enemy that will lust after that light, that will assail it, that will desire to destroy it, etc. Little by little build the kingdom of God until you with me become the mutual and joint key to this golden age. My motto as I send you on your way: step by step, the kingdom is one. Step by step, the battle is won. The mantle of Saint Germain descends. I offer my heart. Thank you for your presence as receptors and preceptors of Maitreya today. And thank you, beloved Maitreya, for your magnificent presence. Let us truly applaud his coming in our midst.
Please remain standing as we give the benediction on page 23 of your Ashram rituals. Page 23 of your Ashram ritual booklets. Together. I am thy holy love. I am thy secret love star, watching between each member of the ashram as we remain unseparated, though seemingly apart in time and space. One in the ocean of thy violet fire, one in the heart of freedom's love. Saint Germain and Portia, and God-centered in the shining dewdrop of our own individuality forever. Almighty I Am Presence, thou art one. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you, everyone.
Mystery of life, at last I found thee. Ah, I know at last the secret of it all. All the longing, seeking, striving, waiting, yearning, the burning hopes, the joy and idle tears that fall. For 'tis love and love alone the world is seeking, and 'tis love and love alone that can repay. 'Tis the answer, 'tis the end, and all of living, for it is love alone that rules forever.
Mystery of life, at last I found thee.
I know at last the secret of it all. Oh, the longing,
Seeking,
striving,
waiting,
yearning, the burning hopes, the joy and idle tears that fall. For 'tis love and love alone